Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving straight into something you interact with every single day, whether you realize it or not. We're talking about the art of visual clarity and ethical communication. We're going to explore exactly how authors and advertisers use graphic and print features. Some of them genuinely want to inform you, while others, well, they might want to persuade or even manipulate you. So by the end of our time here, you are going to have a solid toolkit to look at these features and decode exactly what they're trying to do.
So, let me ask you, have you ever been completely tricked into believing false information by a really bad chart? Maybe a pie chart that somehow magically adds up to 140%. Yeah, we've all been there. We are literally surrounded by infographics, targeted ads, and heavily formatted articles. Every single time you scroll through a feed or open a magazine, you're hit with a barrage of visual information. Sometimes, a single chart can beautifully summarize way more than a whole paragraph of text ever could. But other times, a misleading graphic can absolutely trick you into believing something that simply isn't true. Being able to evaluate these features isn't just some boring academic exercise. It's a real-world survival skill. It helps you spot the useful, accurate visuals and effortlessly ignore the ones designed to mislead you.
To really ground this topic, the Academy curriculum introduces a fascinating philosophical anchor, starting with an ancient text from Habakkuk 2:2. The quote reads, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it." The curriculum actually uses this to illustrate that the mandate for clear, truthful communication is both ancient and essential. The whole idea of making it plain, presenting information so clearly that the person reading it can understand it immediately and take action, that is highlighted as the absolute gold standard of ethical communication. The author's intent here is clarity, not confusion. Keep this framework in mind as we evaluate how modern authors present their tablets of information to us today.
All right, so when we talk about graphic and print features, what are we actually talking about? Basically, they are visual tools, things like charts, images, and headings that help communicate an author's ideas and support their underlying purpose. As a smart consumer, it's absolutely crucial to recognize that an author doesn't just use words. A single visual feature can signal what is most important in a document, or break down a highly complex concept into a super digestible format. They're essentially the guideposts the author leaves for you on your reading journey.
Okay, let's dive into this and break down the exact distinction. On one hand, we have graphic features. These are the visual images themselves, like your charts, diagrams, photos, and those really complex infographics. They give you a visual representation of the data. On the other hand, we have print features. These are the textual formatting tools the author uses to organize the words, things like headings, bullet points, and captions. So, think of it like this. While graphic features show you the picture, print features tell you exactly how to read the text. Together, they create a complete roadmap of the author's intent. Let's look at an example. Imagine you're reading an article about the cardiovascular system. A beautifully labeled diagram of the human heart showing the exact direction of blood flow perfectly illustrates the concept of accurate support. This graphic directly supports the author's informative purpose. It doesn't confuse you at all. It makes a really complex biological process plain and simple to grasp. It's helpful communication functioning exactly as it should.
Now, what's really interesting about this next scenario is imagine getting a political flyer in the mail with a massive bar chart. You see 3 distinct bars shooting way up. But wait, there is absolutely no text, no numbers, and literally no labels on the axes. It is completely impossible to know what those numbers actually mean. Even if the text printed next to the chart sounds super convincing, the visual itself is actively misleading the reader. It's creating this illusion of data without providing any actual facts. And this is exactly the kind of stuff you need to be on the lookout for as a consumer.
And this whole concept extends to print features too. Imagine opening a newsletter and the very first thing you see is bolded, heavy text reading, "Warning, severe weather ahead." That simple print feature, just the bolded text, instantly signals immediate urgency. It completely changes the visual weight of the page. It grabs your eye before you read anything else, right? And it effectively helps the author's purpose of alerting you to danger. It's a perfect example of a print feature doing exactly what it was designed to do. All right, time for a quick pop quiz. The source material challenges its readers to put this into practice, so let's try it. Can you name 2 types of graphic features? Think back to that comparison we did earlier. If you thought of charts, diagrams, photos, or infographics, you are right on the money. These are the visual, image-based tools that carry data or concepts. Let's keep that momentum going. Consider this next scenario. How can captions actually help you understand a text? Really think about what a caption does. It sits right underneath or next to a photo or diagram. A caption is that tiny, crucial print feature that bridges the gap between the complex graphic and the main text. It literally tells you exactly what you are looking at and why it matters in the context of the article, ensuring you don't misinterpret the visual. Okay, now thinking about the ethical side of communication, can you give an example of a misleading visual and explain exactly why it's misleading? Think back to that sketchy political flyer. The answer here is a bar chart, missing its labels or numbers on the axes. It's misleading because it tricks the consumer into seeing a trend or a dramatic difference, like, say, one bar being twice as high as another, without providing the actual data to prove what is being measured. It leverages the authority of a chart to hide a total lack of facts.
Moving on. Explain how bold print can signal importance. Like, why does making a letter thicker actually change how we read? Well, as we saw with that severe weather warning, bold print increases the visual weight of the words on the page. It creates a stark contrast with the surrounding normal text, which naturally draws the human eye directly to it. It's basically telling the reader, hey, stop skimming and pay attention right here, right now.
Finally, the text asks readers to bring this right into their own lives. Describe a time when a graphic helped you understand something better. Maybe you were trying to assemble a wildly frustrating piece of furniture, and the diagram completely saved the day. Or maybe you were staring at a confusing math concept, and a beautifully colored pie chart suddenly made it all click. Navigating everyday information as a smart consumer means recognizing when authors give you the absolute gift of clarity.
So, we've spent some time on the mechanics, the what and the how of visual literacy. We know how to spot a bad chart, and we know exactly why authors use bold text. But you might be wondering, why does this all actually matter? To explain this, we turn to the foundational philosophy behind the Academy Godly Learners series.
The curriculum operates on a specific philosophy, intentionally intertwining biblical morality with academic education. It argues that education without morality can actually be harmful because it just gives people the tools to mislead others. Think about it. If you teach someone to be highly intelligent, to completely understand charts, data, and persuasion, but you don't give them a moral compass, they can use those skills manipulatively, like creating those unlabeled graphs we talked about. Furthermore, the curriculum points to Romans 8:6-7, highlighting a promise of peace of mind to those who keep their minds spiritual. The overarching idea presented here is that true education should lead to wisdom and peace, not just raw mechanical intelligence. And that brings us to our final provocative thought for this explainer. I want to leave you with a direct question, straight from the core of today's source material. What is the point of being smart and supposedly educated if you continue to make bad choices that hurt yourself and others? Being visually literate, understanding print features, and knowing how to evaluate information, well, that makes you smart. But applying that knowledge ethically, demanding the truth, and communicating honestly, that is what makes you wise. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and honestly, I hope you never look at an unlabeled bar chart the same way again.